Sam looked at him and wept in his heart, but no tears came to his dry and stinging eyes. I said I'd carry him. If it broke my back, he muttered, and I will. Come, Mr. Frodo, he cried. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you, and it as well. So up you get. Come on, Mr. Frodo, dear. Sam will give you a ride. Just tell him where to go, and he'll go. That is obviously from the chapter in Return of the King, the third book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the chapter called Mount Doom, where Sam carries Frodo up Mount Doom, carries his master. Well, if you haven't noticed behind me, and usually even the shirt I'm wearing, points that I am a fan of Lord of the Rings, both the books by JRR Tolkien and the movies by Peter Jackson. I think they just exude things and themes for us to try and mimic in our current day and age that are probably rare. Things like serving one another, loving your neighbor, and things of the like. Well, again, it is International Hobbit Day, so happy Hobbit Day to you. And I wanted to kind of address why I think Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, is an important book that the church should read. Not necessarily teach from or any things of that nature, but more or less read, as in getting a different perspective of the things and ways that Jesus wants us to live for him in this world. In the Lord of the Rings, in the Middle Earth realm that JRR Tolkien created, or sub-created as he likes to say, he created something that was altogether unique but also familiar to us. The darkness that we see, the ever-growing push towards industrialization, and we can see that even in our day. So it's familiar to us. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was the church as fellowship. Oftentimes we'll say when we have Sunday service or Mass, if you're Catholic, is that, we're going to have a time of fellowship afterwards. Well, that may be true, that you will have a time of fellowship afterwards. But what if we're stopping that fellowship too soon? What if the church, or the way, as Paul liked to refer to the church in the book of Acts and in his epistles, what if the church is supposed to be the fellowship all the time, not just on Sundays or Wednesday nights or Thursday nights when we gather, but all the time? Church as fellowship on a journey as we help one another to get rid of this evil, this one ring, so that we can usher in a time of peace, as when the king returns, Aragorn, who would later become the king of both Gondor and Arnor, would say, "Now come the days of the king." And Gandalf says, "May they be of peace." So Tolkien wrote in his in his essay on fairy stories, something I would like to share with you, and I'm going to take my glasses off to read it because I'm getting old. And he says, "I would venture to say that approaching the Christian story from this direction, it has long been my feeling, a joyous feeling, that God redeemed the corrupt making creatures, men, in a way fitting to this aspect, as to others of their strange nature. The Gospels contain a fairy story, or a story of a larger kind, which embraces all the essence of fairy stories. They contain many marvels, peculiarly artistic, beautiful, and moving, mythical in their perfect self-contained significance. And among the marvels is the greatest and most complete conceivable eucatastrophe." And eucatastrophe is a word that he coined, you could say invented. He was a philologist, so words were his thing. But this story has entered history and the primary world the desire and aspiration of subcreation, has been raised to the fulfillment of creation. The birth of Christ is the eucatastrophe of man's history. The resurrection is the eucatastrophe of the story of the incarnation. The story begins and ends in joy. It has preeminently the inner consistency of reality. There is no tale ever told that men would rather find was true, and none which so many skeptical men have accepted as true on its own merits. For the art of it has the supremely convincing tone of primary art, that is, of creation. To reject it leads either to sadness or to wrath. And Tolkien captured that essence of what he believed to be the greatest story ever told uh, in the Gospels of Christ coming, the King returning to claim his kingdom. And I believe he did so eloquently. And I think him explaining himself in his own essays helps us to capture a sense of his actual work and how he, as he would say, the stories weren't Catholic at first, but they became Catholic because it came through him, so to speak. And I don't mean Catholic in a sense of denominational, but Catholic in a sense of universalism towards the gospel is for all people. And I read that from a an expanded edition on Tolkien's On Fairy Stories. I think you can find this on Amazon. I'm not sure. I'll find a link for you to share in the description. So what about us as individuals? The church, yes, should be a fellowship of the king, so to speak. But what about us as individuals? Should we strive to be like any of these characters in the Lord of the Rings universe from Middle Earth? Is there any of the attributes of certain characters that we should look at and realize maybe we're looking at small glimpses of ourselves? Maybe like for instance Boromir, when he tried to take the ring, he went through a series of sinning, of self-examination, of repentance, and ultimately asking for forgiveness before he died. Frodo, in taking on such a big task, a challenge to rid the world of the ring, really had no concept other than the fact of what they told him, that the ring was evil, but it was going to be hard to get there. But he saw everybody else bickering. He said, you know what? If no one else is going to do it, I'll do it. I'll take the ring to Mordor. And along the way, he had many adventures, obviously, with Sam at his side. But what about Aragorn? Is Aragorn someone we should strive to be like? I know there are several YouTube channels that talk about Aragorn. We should all strive to be like Aragorn. The type of man you should be is be like an Aragorn. Well, Aragorn is not is not something we technically can be. He's a character, but his attributes are something that are honorable and noble. What about Frodo? Should we strive to be like Frodo? I think we all are a little bit of Frodo. We all carry pieces or bits of the One Ring in our realm. But what about Sam? What about Samwise Gamgee? To me, Samwise has always been the well, Tolkien said it himself. Tolkien said that Samwise was the chief hero. This is my Lego of Samwise. Um, yes, I have Legos. It's okay. But Samwise was a servant. Samwise was Frodo's gardener. He worked for Mr. Frodo, but he promised to go with and help Frodo even to the end. And you caught me at the beginning reading a little bit from towards the end of the Return of the King, where right before the ring was destroyed, Frodo was spent, and Sam, who had made that promise to Gandalf that he wouldn't leave nor forsake Frodo, that he would be with him, he would carry him if he had to, even to his last breath. If it meant dying, he would die with Frodo. So yes, I think we should all be a little more Sam. We should all be looking for a Frodo to help, to carry sometimes, to bear their burdens. And I think as every church, if they start becoming more of a fellowship, more of a family, that is, in some cases, trauma bonded because of the things we go through. But we bear those burdens together. So today, I hope that you are doing something hobbity. I hope you are doing something with your family. Because that's what the Hobbit was meant to be, was a people who were simple. And Tolkien wrote it in his book that there's no wrong thing about a simple life. There's nothing wrong with it to live a simple life of friends, of community, of helping one another. And I think that's what the church should be. The church should be like Hobbiton, so to speak, like the Shire, helping one another, striving for peace and unity. Sometimes you have to go on adventures, and if you do, you need a fellowship. So I pray your church becomes more fellowship-like, that the men would bond together. And another thing I liked about the church as fellowship, in looking at the two in side by side, the church and the Fellowship of the Ring, is that when Elrond brought them all together, he greeted them as strangers from distant lands. They weren't all from the same place. They weren't all the same people. They were all different, different types of people. And he brought them together, and then they all rallied around Frodo to help him bear the burden of the One Ring, even if it meant their death. I pray that we would become more and more like a fellowship. Only not a fellowship of the ring, but a fellowship of the king. And one last thing, Frodo's sword, Sting, this is a foam model of it, would glow in the dark if evil came near. I mean, we read the Bible. In the Bible, the sword of the Spirit is, as it's so called, is described as a lamp unto our feet, a light into our path. I thought it was appropriate that the sword would glow when Frodo came in danger. So that's another parallelism that I think fits nicely. That yes, we should be armed, we should be equipped, but we should be armed with the sword of the Spirit. And it too will be a light unto our path. So, happy Hobbit Day to you. Me and my family are going to have some potato soup that we got out of this cookbook here. It is the unofficial Lord of the Rings cookbook. We're having the Prancing Pony potato soup, and it is delicious. So I pray you and your family do something as a family today. Whether you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings or not, it is something that gives us a different perspective on what the church should look like and how we should bear one another's burdens. So, grace and peace to you. Hopefully, I'll have some more content coming out next week, more of a weekly content. But until then, I pray that you are blessed. I pray that you are a blessing. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. Thanks, and God bless you.